Good morning, YouTube. How's it going? Glad you can join me this morning. I got my morning coffee out on the deck this morning. It's a beautiful morning already. Hopefully you're enjoying your coffee, or depending on when you're watching this, maybe imbibing on a adult beverage, as they say. But anyways, thanks for joining me. It's been a little bit since I posted a video. Sorry about that. I had to get a sip of coffee. It's been a little bit since I posted a video. Been really busy. One of the main things that's taken up a lot of my time, as you can tell from the hat and the shirt, I started a new drone business, Parker Drones. We handle aerial imagery, mapping, surveying, inspections, real estate, events, all within the tri-state area of Tennessee and Mississippi and Arkansas. So if you happen to be watching this and you need some drone work, give me a call, Damon at Parker Drones. Now, in my last video, I asked in the comments what I should make next, and you all chose the 5 tips for beginner drone pilots, and so that's what we're going to cover today. So if you're new to flying drones, maybe you just got one or you're looking to get one, I think you'll find that these 5 basic tips are very important for you when starting out as a small unmanned aircraft pilot. Now, today I'm not going to be talking about actually flying your drone, techniques, movements, or anything like that. Today we're just talking about the basics that every drone pilot should follow when they're first beginning to fly drones, and even as they continue to progress in flying drones. Some of these tips are things that even seasoned pilots want to do on a regular basis. So let's begin with step number 1, and that is register your drone with the FAA. Now, I'm going to leave the link right here and also down in the comments where you can register your drone. Here's a tip though. The FAA registration is only $5 US. So what that means is if you go to a site and they want to upsell you on stickers or placards, lanyards, or they want to charge more than $5 for registration, you're not at the right site. Make sure to visit the site below to make sure that you're registering on the correct FAA website. So that is tip number 1. Let's move on to tip number 2. Now, this one is good for beginner pilots, intermediate pilots, and even professional pilots. And that is, when you're flying your drone, know your surroundings. Be aware of where you're flying your drone. That means being aware of the tallest objects around you, whether they're man-made structures like houses or buildings, perhaps there's trees or power lines and wires, and even people around. You want to make sure that when you go to fly, you're in a wide open space. If you can find one, preferably a park or somewhere out where there's not a lot of tall objects around and not a lot of people. So when you want to fly your drone, make sure that you find a wide open space. Don't try to fly your drone inside your house or in confined spaces, especially if you're a beginner. You want to make sure that you're outside with plenty of room to fly. And so again, that's the important piece. Know where you're flying, know your surroundings. And one of the first tips that I give any new drone pilots is to, once you know what the tallest object is around you in your field of view and the field in which you'll be flying, make sure that when you first take off, you go straight up and go higher than that highest object. That way, when you start to move forward, side to side, you start to yaw or pitch, you're not going to worry about running into obstructions because you're high enough above them. But that brings us to an important point, and that is, as a drone pilot, even though you're not in the air flying a plane, you're still considered part of national airspace. That means you need to fly within FAA regulations in classified airspace. As an example, I live in Olive Branch, Mississippi. Probably about 5 miles from here is a small municipal airport. So that puts my house in a restricted flying zone. Typically, by law, a drone pilot can only fly their drone up to 400 AGL or above ground level. That is the legal limit. Now, there are some concessions but those are reserved for commercial drone pilots who get the proper authorization and waivers. But for hobbyist and recreational pilots, 400 feet is your max. However, if you're like me and you live near an airport, whether it's big or small, you need to check the airspace that you're flying within. So for instance, as you can see in the app that I'm showing here, my house is located in restricted airspace. I have to get a Lance authorization in order to fly my aircraft. But as you can see in the app, it gives automatic authorization to fly up to 200 feet. So all I need to do is enter that Lance request and I'll be automatically approved to fly my drone up to 200 feet AGL. So I say all that to say, be aware of your surroundings. It's the most important thing as a drone pilot because one, you don't want to hurt other people. You don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to wreck your brand new drone. So just pay attention to where you're flying and how you're flying. So that leads me to tip number 3, which is keep your drone close and within visual line of sight. Yes, regulations here in the United States dictate that you need to keep your drone within visual line of sight at all times. Now, I get it. I'm a drone pilot for recreation and for work. A lot of people, even myself, we fly our drones beyond line of sight. So there's a little gray area there. But the main thing for you as a beginner is to keep your drone within visual line of sight. That way, as we mentioned in the previous tip, you're aware of your surroundings and you're aware where you're flying within those boundaries. The farther you fly away, the higher the risk is that you may lose or crash your drone. I say that, for example, when it comes to battery life. Let's say that you're flying your drone and you're beyond your visual line of sight, and you notice that your battery is getting down to 20%, 19%, 18%. Guess what might happen? You might not have enough battery to return to home. You end up risking your drone. Now, most new drones come with GPS, and when they lose their connection to the controller or they recognize that they're going to not have enough battery, they'll automatically turn around and come back to you. But it's always important for you as the pilot to have control of your aircraft. Don't fly it too far away from you. You don't want to risk losing or crashing it. This leads me to tip number 4, which is get to know your drone. Get to know the controller. When you first get it, it can be tempting to just take it straight outside and just fly it, not knowing how to control it. Before you do that, just take a look at the drone, take a look at your instruction manuals, make sure that you familiarize yourself with the controls, what the control sticks do, and how they work. But here's the key. It takes practice to get better. When you first fly your drone, don't expect that you're going to be this amazing videographer taking these amazing aerial images and views. That comes with time. So what you want to do is fly your drone, but get to know it, practice the settings that are built into your drone. To get better at flying, you need to be familiar with your drone and the controls. Understand the settings within the app. For instance, in the DJI app, there's a lot of settings that you can go through that can adjust different features of your drone, from the way it flies to the way it takes pictures and video. Get familiar with it so that you're not trying to find it out in a situation where you're already in the air. And remember, to get better at flying, it takes practice. Practice, practice, and more practice. That leads me to tip number 5. And this one applies for new pilots and even those who have been flying a long time like myself. And that is, before you fly your drone, each time you need to go through a pre-flight checklist. Now, some people may say, do I really need to go through a list every single time before I fly? Well, the answer should be yes. Why is that? Well, let's take an example of a pre-flight checklist. What you might want to check, one, is your battery. Is it installed? Does it have enough power? You want to check the rotors, each one. Are there any nicks or breakage or cracks in those propellers? You need to check the gimbal. You need to check the compass. Is it calibrated? And all that's important because if you go to fly your drone and you don't realize that perhaps you've got a nick or a break in one of your propellers, that could severely affect the flight ability of your drone. You may even crash it. And so that's why it's important before each flight to go over a pre-flight checklist. There's many of them on the internet. I'll leave a link below to one that I use. Use that before each flight. It doesn't take a long time. It's just making sure that you're taking the steps to ensure that your drone is safe, you're safe, other people are safe. You don't want some condition where your drone falls out of the sky and hurts someone or you. So make sure you do those pre-flight checklists. And so for my final tip, just have fun. You bought your drone, you want to enjoy it, you want to fly it recreationally, have fun with it. Again, get it up in the air, be aware of your surroundings, but just start flying. Get those flight hours, because the more you fly, the better you're going to get at it, and the better you get, the more you're going to enjoy your drone. So I want to thank you for joining today. If you like the information that I've shared with you, make sure to like, thumbs up, comment below. I'd love to hear what some of your tips are for beginner drone pilots. And if you enjoy the type of content that I provide you, please think of subscribing to the channel. And I want to give a quick shout out to all those who have subscribed. We hit over 1,000 subscribers just recently. Thanks everyone for joining and subscribing. I'm going to continue to put out great content that you'll find valuable and enjoyable. So again, thanks for joining me today. And until next time, Parker Drones out.